What's up, guys? This is Tyler Tote, and welcome to the channel. So I remember being about 10, 11 years old. One of my good buddies, at the time, we were all into sports and playing, and I remember he talked his grandma into buying him a Playboy magazine because there was an article about his favorite player in there, Scottie Pippen. Now, I'm sure he wanted to read the Scottie Pippen article. I'm sure he more wanted to see what was in that Playboy magazine, and for some reason, his grandma bought that for him, and I remember looking at that magazine as a 10, 11-year-old boy and for the first time seeing pornography and something in my brain was like, well, I like that. And if I'm real honest, over the next 24 years, that was a pretty common pattern in my life. And I hate to admit that, but that was sort of just normal to look at this stuff. Now I could say, look, I got married at 30. I'm a Christian guy. I went to church every week. I was a happily married guy to a beautiful wife, beautiful kids, all these things. And it was one thing that I could never solve. I remember, this is gonna be the last time. How many times would I tell myself, this is the last time, the last time, the last time? I did this for 20 some years, and April 23rd, 2020 was the last time. Here's exactly how I quit. Here's exactly how I broke out of that cycle. I want to share this as one of the most important videos I think I'll ever put up. It's probably one of the biggest things that I get comments wise in my DMs from young men, from married men. I've had preachers reach out, say, I can't get over this. So let's hop in together. Let's solve this crisis of men's lives. And let's help you quit pornography forever. I can't tell you the freedom it brings when you do. Let's dive in. And the first thing I want to say is this is just a sad and demonic industry. Now that I'm removed from it, it has become less of like, oh, it's just a harmless, casual thing that all guys do. I think we need to end that stereotype, number one. I've looked at some OnlyFans data. I saw they put on their own website 90% of OnlyFans subscribers come from married men. Number one, that just breaks my heart and makes me incredibly sad. Men, I'm just gonna say this. The day that I sat my wife down and said, I only desire you. I'm never gonna go to this. I'm ashamed that I've done this, but never again. You are my one source. You'd be surprised how much harder I pursue her when she's my one source, right? Multiple date nights a week. And I'm just gonna say it, the sex life goes from a 100x when she knows she's the only one. And guys, just think about it. Would you really want her viewing other men in this way? It's pretty disgusting. And then, men that you have daughters, I'll get into this later, but man, I don't think you can be a great dad if you're viewing this stuff. 30% of all the traffic in the world is pornography. So that means almost a third of every time somebody goes online anywhere in the world, they're viewing pornography, which is just insane. It's a $97 billion industry. Again, I just look at it as very demonic. I saw this recently where one of my friends posted multiple gals had actually killed themselves from being in the industry, and yet these sites and these people left their videos up. So guys were going on here and viewing these women who had taken their own life from the shame and all of these things that they were doing. It's just a very demonic and broken industry. So again, if you're in this rut that I was in and you're saying, this is the last time, I want to be done with this stuff forever. Here's the cheat codes. Here's exactly what I did. The first thing, and this was so freeing, I got accountability. I had two awesome buddies I'll never forget, man. I shot them a text and I said, hey guys, I'm not proud of this. This is something I go to if my wife is traveling or if it's just been a week or so with my wife. This is just something I go to. I can't name the porn stars' names or I'm not paying for sites, but it's just free and readily available and I go there. And I don't want to do this anymore. I felt so much freedom just telling other people about it. And I think so often the enemy's great at just, you're the only one. Don't tell people, just hide it, right? And I'll never forget, man, typing out that text. And when I sent it to those two guys right away, they're like, heck yeah, man, we'll be your partners. We'll encourage you. And so I told them, hey, man, if I feel tempted, I'm going to text you guys. And so, for the next 90 days or so, I remember several times being like, man, I'm going out for a walk. Hey, I just need to let you guys know, man, I'm stressed. I'm agitated. That pathway that's been normal for me for 23, 24 years, I'm breaking this cycle now. So I got to get out of here and do something different. Get more into that here in a minute. But I think step one, tell somebody about it. Quit hiding, quit struggling alone. Couple of really good buddies. I personally, and you do what's best for you, I sat my wife down. And I told her, and I'm honestly, she cried a little bit. This got to be a really hard thing to hear, right? I said, look, I'll be honest. I think 99% of guys do it. From every guy I've ever talked to in my men's group or this or that, I'm yet to meet one who's like, oh, I've just never looked at that. Now I have some great, awesome guys who've been free of this stuff for decades and things like that. But I think almost every guy's looked at it at some point, and I said, never again. So I sat her down. She was my first accountability piece. I'm done with this. And then, telling the other men that. So I think that's got to be step one. Don't struggle. Don't fight this battle alone, especially you've been struggling at this for years or decades. I mean, you're not going to win the battle alone. Get some help. Number two, this just became a massive thing for me. And as I started reading and studying, I was really getting addicted to self-improvement at this time and how to build habits. And I think too often people just quit something. Well, again, you have this pathway, this neural pathway in your brain that's telling you when you're stressed, when you're agitated, whatever, go to this. And you've been doing this now for decades. And so that's normal. So you got to replace it. And so this became a really big thing. And I'd urge anybody after you get that accountability piece, next thing, write down 10 things you're going to do if you ever feel that urge or feel that thing. Now, some of you guys are going to laugh at this. I haven't been real open with this, but I got addicted to pull-ups. It's actually became what I got kind of a little bit famous on Twitter now with several 100,000 followers. When I was building that following, I was doing like hundreds of pull-ups a day. I got to the point where I did 750 in a day. I just got addicted to pull-ups. People like, why does this guy love pull-ups so much? Well, that was the first thing on my list. I said, if I feel like going to pornography, I'm going to go to my garage, put on praise music, some Jesus music, and do pull-ups. And so I got really good at pull-ups. There's a picture of me. I just got a shredded back. That was a great side effect of doing those. Some other things I did was I wrote my wife love letters. I wrote my daughter a letter of how much I loved her, and I would pray and think that, I don't want to be a part of this demonic industry. I have a daughter, and I want her to be raised a different way. And to be honest, the way that I view my little precious daughter is the same way that God views those women. And I don't want to be looking at them in that way. And so, I had those. I had call my mom, call my dad, call my sister, take a walk. A big thing is change your environment. So list those 10 things you're going to go to as a replacement. I promise you're not going to win on willpower. You're not. You might win a while on willpower. You need systems over willpower. So get those things down. Number three, and this is just a little cheat code that, again, when I was studying kind of habits and systems and how to become the best version of yourself, I just picked this one up and applied it. And I thought it was kind of funny, to be honest, but wherever you view at, for me, it was just like private browsing on my phone or on my computer. I would just I literally went to the private browsing screen page and I put a picture up of my preacher, Eddie Lowen. Hi, Eddie. And my daughter, Tinley. And so if I ever was to be tempted and kind of bypass the other couple systems and I pulled up private browsing, that was a buffer and a little friction. I got my pastor, this guy that like, dude, I love more than respect more than almost anybody who's saved my life in a lot of ways, looking right back at me. And now I got my little angel, my daughter, at the time, my 4-year-old, 5-year-old daughter staring right back at me. That was enough for me to just like, oh man, let me take a breath. Let me think. I've heard other guys that I've coached and helped with this. I remember one had a bunch of pictures of his grandma up, and he said, I can't look at my grandma and then want to be in the mood for that. Tip four, and I went into this a little bit earlier, so I'll just touch on it briefly. But look, it comes down to a boy or a man. I was a boy for 34 years. In past relationships with my wife in a few years, man, I would never be open about these things. I'd just go hide and then maybe complain that they didn't understand me or they didn't get me or they didn't know my need for this enough. Well, of course they don't if you haven't communicated it. And so that was a big piece, sitting my wife down, getting on the same page about this and saying, hey, this isn't an option. I'm ashamed for it. I need to ask forgiveness for it, but I'm moving on and I'm leaving this behind. And so sitting your wife down, I think that, some guys will say, I can't do that. She'll leave me. You have to know what's best for you there. I just always like honesty. I always like openness in every relationship. So I would recommend it. Number five, and I've done this for multiple things. I remember when I was quitting sugar, when I was quitting soda, I wrote myself a letter. Same thing for quitting pornography. I remember writing myself a letter just saying, Dear Ty, I'm so proud of you for being 1 year pornography free. You haven't gone back. You haven't looked at it. Your relationship with God is on fire. Your relationship with your wife is on fire. You no longer have to be nervous when your wife asks for your phone and you're like, did I close all the stuff out? Or maybe something's going to pop up that shouldn't. You're free. Imagine the feeling of being free and maybe take 10 or 15 minutes after this video and just Imagine what that would feel like to be completely free. I can tell you, man, it's the best feeling in the world to be in control of your impulses. And I always say a guy that controls impulse is a dangerous guy. He can accomplish anything. And if porn is always free and readily available, but you say, nah, I only desire my wife. I only look over here. You are a really dangerous person and you can create anything you want. And that's what I've sort of learned about this too, is if you have the discipline and the willpower to conquer this, you can conquer anything. I really truly believe that. And so, take the first step and tell yourself how proud you are of this. What's it going to feel like? See it in your mind a year from now, man, when you're not a slave to this, when you don't have those shame cycles, you're free. So write yourself a little letter, take some time, journal that out, and then again, go back and get those 10 steps down that you're going to have. But I would say even keep this letter available. I kept it in the notes section of my phone. And again, sometimes when I got tempted, I'd pull that up and I'd read it back and I'd remember why it was so important for me not to go back to this garbage. Number six, and I think this is such an important one and nobody talks about it that I've seen anyway, but my first mentors.com will help me so much with this. I remember he said, don't be ashamed and reframe those urges as a good thing. And at first I was like, oh man, I'm like a slave to this, right? Like, oh, I'm anxious and this is what I go to. And he said, bro, this is a great thing. Like when you get that urge to go there, just take a moment, deep breath, and remind yourself your body's just alerting you need to do something different. I reframe all of anxiety like this now. If I'm anxious and I feel that stress coming up, the first thing I'm going to go to is take 5, 10 deep breaths. Okay, what have I been putting off? What's my body telling me that I need to do something? This is just my system alerting me that maybe some things aren't great. And so when I would have that urge, even a month in, and I'm like, man, I want to go here. I would take those deep breaths. I'd remind myself this is just my body alerting me that probably something needs to change. I'm stressed about some other things. I really don't even think most guys go to watch this stuff for anything other than just a stress release. And that's the neural pathway that this is just what we've done since we've been teenagers. And so we just keep repeating these cycles without really thinking about it. When you really think about it, I mean, not getting too into it, it's pretty homo, man. You're watching other dudes with other girls. It's just really weird, Like, why would you? I don't know. The more that I've zoomed out from it, the more I'm like, yeah, I just kind of want to be with my wife. That's real cool. It ain't real cool to like be watching these other people. It's kind of real beta and real something I don't want to be a part of. So I don't know. When you really think about it and you zoom back and you say, I'm going to reframe those urges. It's just, again, for me, it was alerting my body. A lot of times I need to get up and move. I need to change environments. I've been maybe putting off writing or some of the things that I've been to do I just need to attack those things. Maybe I need to go sit my wife down and tell her, honey, you've been busy and it's been a few days. What can I do to create that space on our date night tonight? It might be one of those things. So reframe those urges as it's not negative. You're not a slave. It's just alerting your body that you need to change. Take a few deep breaths. Text your accountability buddy. Go to the 10 items you're going to do instead. Follow some of the guidelines on this list, man. And I'm telling you, freedom like you cannot imagine awaits. I do remember so vividly, man, being fired up in church on Sunday. And I'd even pray about it. Like, this is going to be the last time. It's going to be the last time. A couple nights before, I'm praying forgiveness, never again, never again. And then by next Sunday, often I'd be like, well, all right, last time, then never, never again, right? And I repeat these cycles. And there's so much shame in there. And I felt like there's this barrier between my relationship with the Lord of where I could really flourish with Him because I had this thing that was just always in the corner of my mind. Even the way that I've healed and I can just view women now. When you're looking at this stuff pretty frequently for years, I hate to admit it, but you do in a weird, twisted way, you view women differently. And so, I pray all the time, man. I've already started praying for my sons who are 4. This stuff is just poison. And that's how I really frame it in my mind is if you want to be a man, you are not a slave. Yeah, I could push any button on my phone right now and have any kind of junk food delivered. I could open up my phone after this, any kind of weird porn in the whole world could pop up. But I have the self-control and I have that in me to say, no, like I'm going to be a man who can control my impulses. One of my best friends, I consider him a mentor as well, is Zuby. And I remember him telling me, man, several years ago, he said, I've seen a lot of great men be ruined by this. A lot of great men have lost their family, lost their wealth, lost all of these things because of this one. They're a slave to it. They're addicted and they're a slave to this. And so, when you really think about what you're giving up, and you're never going to get to the end of your life and be like, I wish I would have watched more porn. You're going to get to the end of your life, like, man, I wanted to be a guy of integrity. So look, the last thing I'll leave you with is you can be free this moment. You can literally get on your knees right after this video, say a prayer in Jesus' name. I get the demons of this, they're out, they're done. I'm gonna text a couple buddies, and for the first time in my life, I'm gonna tell other people about it. I'm gonna be free. I'm going to get go-to activities down so that, you know what, when I feel those urges, I'm just going to reframe them, take a couple breaths, and go to these other activities. I'm going to change my private browsing screen to my daughter, my wife, my preacher, my grandma, whatever it is, right? I'm going to use some of these things. Maybe you talk to your wife about it and she works with you too. Whatever these things are, guys, I promise the freedom in this. If I could change one thing about society today, to be honest, I would ban it. I would, and I'm all about freedom, but I would ban pornography. I think it's so destructive for the women. You're promoting sexual slavery. You're promoting trafficking. You're promoting abuse, rape culture. You look at any of the serial killers they interviewed, all the way down the line. I challenge you to go watch some of the interviews I have. Started with pornography, and then it got more hardcore, and then finally they had to act on it. And so, we have this saying in my men's group, the arena, that we have a great group of guys that are locked in. And we always say, hey, if you don't want to go down the wrong path, just keep driving straight. Don't take the first turn and wonder, just go a little farther. Don't open the door. Just get rid of this stuff and you can be free too. So I hope this helps. This is something, guys, I'm super passionate about. I've coached a lot of guys to be to be free from this. If you want any more info, just shoot me an email, tylertote@gmail. I'll link it down below. You put in the tagline, just freedom or something like that. I promise I'll respond. I'll help you out with anything I can. This is something that I feel like, man, imagine if all the great husbands, imagine if OnlyFans just didn't exist and husbands pursued their wives and children saw what that looked like and grew up in these healthy environments. We didn't have dads looking at this crap and viewing women in that way. Think of how our sons would be. Think of how our daughters would be. And this is the world I want. You can be free today. Get on your knees, say the prayer, follow these steps. Much love. Go be kind to yourself. Go be kind to others. Thanks for watching, guys.